Nesting comps relies on thinking ahead or planning, but there are always times when your planning isn't quite what it should be. In these situations, After Effects allows you to pre-compose, which is really nesting backwards. You simply select the files you want to group and let After Effects pre-compose them into a separate composition. And we'll have a look at how to do that in this video. Now, there are lots of reasons for pre-composing. In fact, an in-joke between After Effects users is, if in doubt, pre-compose, because it seems to be a solution for lots of different situations. But we're going to have a look at one specific situation here where it's good. Now, at the moment, I have all these layers within this composition, and if you want to follow along with me, you can open up Pre-Compose AEP, which is in the Grouping and Linking folder. Now, in here, I have this little cartoon character that I've drawn in Illustrator, and I have all these different body parts. If we can isolate these one at a time, in fact, I'll just switch them off one at a time. There's her glasses, her eyebrows, her pupils, her head, her jaw, her dress. You'll notice that she's split into individual pieces so that I can animate her. Now, as well as that, if we scroll down here, we have different elements of the shop, the roller blind, the door of the shop itself, and we have a pavement below that. So the problem is, if I'm animating, it's not too bad with this because it's image files, so I can just go through and animate these, and you'll see that I've already done that. I've created some little character animation by just animating the different body parts. But it becomes a pain when I then want to start moving the layers around. So if I want to treat this as a group, for example. So let me just deselect everything. So I can go to deselect all, Command-Shift-A or Control-Shift-A on Windows. And say I want to, just move this character to a different position. What I have to do is I have to find all of the elements for that character. Now I know that these are all the elements for that character, but if I didn't, I can just go to Source Name and make sure that I can select all of the items for that character. Now, this is in 3D, and you'll notice that if I start to then move it around, I start to get all these weird things happening. Okay, so things don't move as I would expect them, and it starts to become really difficult to get my character to behave well. So one solution is to pre-compose, and it's not just good for grouping the layers together. As you can see, it will overcome these problems in terms of moving the character around. So to pre-compose, I select the layers that I want to put into a separate comp and go to Layer, Pre-Compose. That opens the Pre-Compose dialog box where I can give this a name, so I'll call it Maria Comp. And I'll say Move All Attributes into the new composition and click OK. And now, a much simpler timeline. I have one layer, which is my Maria comp, and if I hit the P key on the keyboard, I have one set of controls for her. Now you'll notice that her bottom half is cut off if I just move her up a little bit. So why is that happening? Well, if we open up the nested comp, which I can do by double-clicking it, you'll notice that it's used the same aspect ratio as the original comp. If we jump back to our pre-composed start comp, which was this one, and look at our composition settings, you'll notice it's 1024 by 576, which is the aspect ratio when I created this for PAL D1 DV widescreen, as it was broadcast in the UK. Now, if I go into the nested composition, you'll notice that it has exactly the same aspect ratio. Now, in order to bring back her legs, I could adjust the height of my composition. So I could go into the Advanced tab, select the anchoring so it anchors from the top, and I could go in here and adjust the settings. And you'll notice that with my modal dialog boxes, which again are a relatively new feature, I can see that update as I make changes. So that's one way of fixing it, and I love these new modal dialog boxes. It's great not to have to click OK to be able to see the changes I'm making. So if I click OK and go back to my pre-composed start comp, you'll see that's fixed it. I now have her legs back. Another solution would be to collapse transformations, and then we wouldn't have had to do that. But you may not want to collapse transformations in this case, so adjusting the size of the comp helps get rid of the problem of losing her legs. Now I can bring up my position value and just move her exactly where I want her in terms of my composition. Okay, so much easier to control her. And if I switch on the layer below, you'll notice that I have another comp, which is my Louis comp, so they're now both within the same composition. So let's just have a little preview of the two characters within the nested comp. Now, there are lots of other reasons that you would pre-compose. Basically, any time where you want to group layers together, pre-composing is one option. Also, if you want to apply an effect to a group of layers, you can pre-compose and apply the effect to the group rather than the individual layers. And there are other reasons when you would want to pre-compose. For example, if you want to render the effect that you've applied to a layer so you can then use it as a compound effect. Situations like that, pre-composing will help. So there we have our characters. Now you'll notice that Louis actually should be in front of Maria. So I'm just going to drag him above Maria so that when he waves his arm, it moves in front of her instead of behind her. So that's a little bit about pre-composing and how it can help you keep your compositions tidy, but also help you move things around in a more logical manner.